Anyway, so now we're going to focus on Spain. The Prime Minister of Spain, I don't know if he actually is truly anti-Zionist, anti genocide, but whether he is or not, we know that the population of Spain is. Their Prime Minister is a left-leaning from a left-leaning party, and Spain has a vigorous left-leaning movement. They've been having strikes, protests. They even forced an Israeli cycling team out of a cycling competition in Spain. So it's clear that the population, up to 80%, 2% of them, are vigorously against what Israel is doing in Gaza. And in line with that, the Prime Minister of Spain has decided to put an arms embargo. It's not going to really hurt Israel, but it's a good gesture. Arms embargo in Israel. And he's upping the rhetoric that he's saying against Israel is heavy. When they had protests in which they shut down the Israeli cycling team and he was called anti Semitic, he said that he's proud of his citizens for protesting. This goes against what happens in Germany. If you protest for Palestine in Germany, even if you're in a wheelchair, they'll double down to make sure that any part of your body that isn't paralyzed will now be paralyzed. In Britain, if you put paint on a plane, they charge you with terrorism. If you say you're for action, what is it called? Palestine action, they put you in jail. So in Spain, there's a healthy, very healthy negative attitude towards the Israeli government. And they've called for bans on sports. Israeli sports, all of this is not welcomed in Spain. Now, once again, I don't know if the prime minister is just a savvy. It doesn't matter because the job of a prime minister is not necessarily just to follow his ideals. It's to do what your electorate brought you there to do. He's a left-leaning party, so he has to behave like a leftist. Leftists don't believe in genocide. We don't believe in encroaching other people's territories and occupying it. So this is a good movement in Spain, along with who else? Norway and Ireland. Ireland actually is the most rugged defender of Gaza all over the world. So I want to say kudos to those three countries. What do you have to say, Kunle? Yeah. Oh, Kunle's down. I don't know what's wrong with his connection. I'm gonna have to pause this thing. But anyway, so the point I'm making now is that this was a good movement for the world in general because you were seeing that all over the world more and more people are beginning to protest this war and starting to get unruly because we know that it's reached a boiling point in which it could come very close to being an absolute genocide. Netanyahu is making no bones about it. He's saying that not only am I going to seize this land, if you don't get off of it, we're going to wipe you out. And he said there will not be a two-state solution. There'll only be one state on this earth in that land over there, from the West Bank, Jerusalem, Gaza, all of that, and it's going to belong to Israel. So basically, what I was saying is that Ireland is vigorously against Israel and is taking a real stance. And I'm not surprised. This is how the Irish are. Norway is taking a milder, but also against it. And now Spain is vigorously against um, Israel. And I don't think it's Spain's prime minister. I think it's the Spanish people in general. Even in Portugal and Italy, they're starting to do things like help the flotilla for the people who stand for Gaza, even though that's more of a poetic gesture. But in general, you're seeing in Southern Europe, Spain, Italy, and Portugal, the sentiment in those countries is that this has to end. Unlike France and Germany and other, which are going down hard on their citizens, so their citizens don't have the power. But it seems like in Spain, especially, the left has a lot of power, and their prime minister has no other option as to clean his hands, wash his hands clean from Israel. What are your thoughts, Kunle? Okay, so as I was saying, Spain, Portugal, and Italy, which are the southern European countries, tend to be take a their governments tend to be more flexible towards uh, anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist activities that Gaza is doing. I mean that Israel is doing, and tend to take actions against Israel, but more so with Spain. Spain is vigorously taking actions, and I think the prime minister is doing that because the population in Spain tends to be 82% against this against the occupation of Palestine and against what's going on in Gaza and see it as a genocide and are probably putting political pressure on him. Now, they had a cycling competition in which the Israeli team was forced to stop, put a lot of pressure on them. This is like what happened to South Africa in the 80s, where countries started banning them in sports and things. They've put an arms embargo, which is a good move, although um, there are other countries that will do business with Israel so they don't have to worry about Spain. But it's still a very strong move. And they were also part of the International Court of Justice with South Africa early on to say that what Israel is doing is a genocide. So it goes to show you that regardless of whatever the prime minister's ideology, even though he says he's a leftist, we know that the ideology in Spain is leftist, and we know even Italy. I think Italy has helped send, along with Spain, some protection for people who are protesting on the flotillas near Palestine and Israel, which is also a good move, even though it may not make such a big difference. But it seems like there's a healthy level of tolerance for immigrants, for people of color, and also a healthy level of antagonism against the nation, the state of Israel, for what it's doing in Southern Europe. And we want to say specifically with Spain. Spain is also part of the triad with Norway and Ireland. And I have to say that Ireland actually, to me, out of all the countries in the world, it's taking one of the strongest stances against Israel. The Irish people are very revolutionary and stand up for sovereignty of countries. And clearly, as you know, the Irish are very tough people. They stood up for their sovereignty against England with the IRA, which was also labeled terrorist. So they have something, they have some sort of kinship with Hamas and Gaza and Palestine. But let's get back to the actions of Spain. So what are your thoughts about this? With Spain taking this hard stance to the point where they're being called
Yeah.
anti-Semitic now. They're being called anti-Semitic, which to me is a badge of honor because it means they're pissing off Israel and they're not bowing down to them the way the U.S. and the other Western nations are. Yeah.
Netanyahu in the last 1 or 2 days secretly accused the UN, one of the UN agencies, of being Hamas. So it's
Right.
become ridiculous. They ridiculed themselves. And I think that you do a disservice to the right and even the far right. I told you I'm a swinger, and when we talk about Spain saying that
Swinger, not as
they
in
not
sex. Swinger as in politically. You don't have
yeah,
any.
yeah, yeah.
You don't
I'll
have.
explain. There's some nuance here. So when there's Spain, it may or may not be left or right wing. I think it's just Spanish people, and I'll tell you this because let me say I was right wing in Spain. I don't want immigrants. I don't want refugees, and I don't want my country spending money on abroad on things that don't affect me. Even if I was far right, then there has been in the 40s the far right movement against Zionism, which was
Yeah.
misinterpreted at the time, possibly to be anti or probably was Semitic at the time, because in those days the idea of racial superiority was far more pronounced than now. So that probably bastardized it and took it to a new level, which made it extremely repugnant, which caused everybody to become the very monsters that they despised. So I will actually say that it could even be the right, because people are beginning to notice that, hey, when we start bombing these countries, refugees keep coming over. They've got an invasion of refugees from Syria, which we bombed the shit out of. We've got refugees from Lebanon. We've got refugees from Gaddafi's country, Libya. I mean, so maybe if we stop bombing these countries, these fucking brown people wouldn't start running to our countries. People are beginning
Yeah.
to realize that, and not that running to their countries because their countries are so nice, but because their countries haven't been bombed. And so even if I was far right, and then you're a human being, every day we're seeing pictures. I saw a picture of like a 6-year-old girl with her intestines hanging out of her stomach, in like a video. And it wasn't AI. And this is like happening all the time. And it affects your mental health. What I saw when the Italians went to protest on the streets, it was like they were relieving something that was affecting their mental health. I keep telling you that when you see these images and you're helpless and you're seeing this evil and there's nothing you can do, it actually affects your mental health. And that day of strike in Italy, I saw even people who were stuck in traffic were happy and supported the strike. Everybody was happy about it. But we are also learning that as much as we despise what the Zionists has become, we cannot allow ourselves to now turn into the very monster that they are that we despise. So we cannot start tearing people apart, because then we now become that which we despise, which is what has happened to the Zionist cause, and they haven't even seen that their
Yeah, let's go back
depravity
online now.
is
Yeah.
out of control.
Okay, so
So
the People's Party in Spain, which is sort of to the right, they they've called what Israel is doing as an atrocity, but they also label Hamas as a terrorist group. So they have a nuanced position. They're saying Israel is wrong, but they're still sort of like blaming Hamas, which is okay. That's better than well, I think the whole world now is beginning to see that Israel is wrong, except for the Democrats in America. That's the only group of people who don't think who don't think what Israel is doing is bad. So, like you said, and the right wing people in Spain know that they are not concerned with spending money and being involved in that genocide. They're concerned with getting immigrants out of their country. And like you said, I think they would see a connection between the two of those. What would you say? Yeah.
yeah, you have to demonize Hamas for now. I mean, even the French resistance were called terrorists by the Germans. The IRA were terrorists, the ANC were terrorists, and now Hamas are terrorists. But we know that Hamas have never done suicide bombing in any Western part of the world. They're not that kind of terrorists. Those are
Nah,
ISIL. They're different kinds.
not yet,
Um,
not yet.
never, never. They have no
No, no,
reason
let me
to.
here's what I'm saying. No, let me see
They,
what I mean not yet. Let me tell you why I say
what
not yet. Let me see why I say
going
not
on?
yet, because you don't know if there are children who will grow up and see what Israel bombing and American bombing did to their country and won't become terrorists later.
Yeah, back to Spain. Well, I think we've left Spain. I wanted to look at Italy and Ireland and also the flotilla that was being supported by Italian vessels.
Yeah, hurry up. Okay,
And
do that. See that
also,
flotilla thing? It's just a photo op. It's bullshit. Italy is
well,
bullshit. It's a
it's
photo
all
op.
propaganda. Yeah, yeah.
Why don't they send tankers? Why don't they send ships and put planes and attack Israel? They're just protecting flotilla people. Those flotilla people aren't going to change anything. It's just poetic.
It's
But go
not
ahead.
you can't go from 0 to 100% bombing
I don't have time
Israeli
for those
name.
things.
You
I
first
don't
have
have
to
time for
say
those
you
things.
first
I don't
know
have
your
time for those
gun,
things.
then you have to
I
walk
don't have time for those things. They should kick out.
around,
They should
then you
kick
have
out.
to then you have to
Okay, if they
prep
don't want to
for
do that,
your fight.
if they don't want to do that, then they should tell the Israel embassy in all of those countries to leave. Ireland has ejected the Israel embassy. Good. Tell Israel that your diplomats are no longer allowed in here. I don't care about flotilla with that little girl Greta Thunberg, those white people dancing on boat as if they're saving black people and people of color.
It's
Please,
getting
go ahead.
harder for Netanyahu. Do you know that he had a problem getting to America because there are so many countries that said they would arrest him if he landed? So his flight plan to get to America had become so bad that it was on CNN this afternoon, just minutes before we got on air. And Netanyahu has been banned from so many countries are now beginning to say they'd arrest him that his flight plans are being affected. It's growing. I'm not saying it's not going to happen in 1 second, but it's gaining momentum. There is a movement. It was first the people, and now it's governments. So it wouldn't
Okay.
be, so it's gaining. There's movement. I believe so
Okay.
that's
Good.
what's moving
Hopefully,
now in respect of the movement against
and meanwhile, two
That's what
hundred
I'm.
people a day, and meanwhile, 200 people a day are getting killed in Palestine. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
Netanyahu is seizing more land in Palestine. People are getting killed in Gaza. So let's see where all of this ends. All right, take us out.